The first thing I heard was her laugh, bright, careless, bouncing off marble and glass like it belonged to a different life. I was alone in my office, lights low, 2 monitors glowing with a dozen live feeds. On screen, a gold-numbered door cracked open just enough for the hallway mic to sip sound. The Ritz-Carlton, downtown. Room 2847. I didn't need the room number. Every word was a needle I could feel. Connor and Madison barely know him anyway, Rebecca said. My name is Carter Reynolds. I'm 42, ex-Army intelligence, founder of Reynolds Security Solutions. I build systems for people who don't want to be surprised. And yet here I was, surprised, no, blindsided, by the woman wearing my last name like jewelry. Through the fisheye lens, I caught her wrist in a flash. A bracelet that didn't come from me, a river of cold light poured around bone. I knew its price without asking, 15 grand if the appraisers in my head were honest. I also knew what money had gone missing from our joint account. 23,000 withdrawn in careful bites, just under thresholds that trigger calls from board banking analysts. That's the part that made my stomach twist. Not the infidelity, the accounting. He was with her. Ethan Morrison, the kind of man who looks like an answer before you remember the question. Smooth voice, perfect haircut, wardrobe that whispered wealth without raising its voice. He was on my couch last Thanksgiving, laughing with my kids while I went back to the office to finish a client brief. He brought bourbon that night, a bottle you don't open unless someone is watching. That's who Ethan is, always performing, always curating, always calculating returns. After the divorce, Ethan said, his tone way too confident for a man standing in a borrowed suite. They'll understand Daddy was never there. Rebecca's reply was soft enough that the hallway mic almost missed it. We'll make sure they see the truth. No one tells you what shock smells like. For me, it smelled like stale coffee and dust from the server rack. It felt like my chest forgot how to be a chest and became an empty cabinet. I didn't pace. I didn't shout. 12 years in Army Intel trains you to separate the body from the mission. The body twitches. The mission waits. I dragged the audio into a secure folder and labeled it the way I label everything that matters. 4 words, simple and clean. Ritz/Rebecca/Ethan/proof. Then I let the feed run and watched them move. The camera inside the room, pinholed into a smoke alarm during a routine hotel security audit, caught their angles when they drifted into the living area. Ethan poured champagne like he owned the vineyard. Rebecca held the flute with the same fingers that had straightened Connor's tie at his first-grade recital. The same fingers that tucked Madison's hair behind her ear when she was too shy to look at the camera. It's funny what memory chooses to keep. I should tell you this system wasn't meant for my personal life. I consult for hotels, corporate campuses, executive residences. I design ways to keep predators out and evidence in. The Ritz paid my team to stress test their floors for blind spots. I left a sandbox feed active because we were running a longer pattern assessment. If my lawyer ever asks, I'll call it an oversight. If my conscience ever asks, I'll call it insurance. Either way, that's how I heard my wife rehearse my funeral. I leaned back and stared at my ceiling where a hairline crack ran like a fault. My reflection ghosted in the glass of my office window. A man in shirt sleeves, an undone tie with 3-day stubble, and the kind of eyes you only get by sleeping badly. My kids' art was taped to the filing cabinet, crayon sons, blocky houses, stick figure family of 4 holding hands. The 4th stick figure suddenly looked like a scarecrow. I didn't call Rebecca. I didn't text Ethan the string of words my fists were composing. I took inventory. That's what you do when the floor gives way. You count what you have left. 2 kids who love pancakes and Saturday morning cartoons. A company that bills 7 figures because I don't miss details. A reputation I built like a bridge, over-engineered, redundantly supported, able to hold weight in winds stronger than this. And a skill set most people pray never to need against someone they love. On the feed, they moved closer. Ethan lifted Rebecca's wrist, admired the bracelet like a craftsman admiring a tool. You earned this, he said, smooth enough to leave no fingerprints. I thought of the withdrawal confirmations in our bank inbox. My name on the same line as hers, my silence enrolled as consent. I thought of the text I'd seen last month when she turned her phone face down too slowly. See you at 6. Wear the black one. I convinced myself it was a stupid joke. We're all so capable of kindness to ourselves when the truth has teeth. I scrubbed back through the recording to make sure I hadn't invented the worst parts. I hadn't. Then I did what I do when a client says a competitor is siphoning prototypes. When a CEO thinks her COO is passing secrets in golf carts. I took out a yellow legal pad and made 3 columns. Facts, assumptions, actions. Facts, missing funds. Hotel suite. Bracelet. Statements about divorce. Phrases crafted like a press release. A timeline I could triangulate with calendar invites Rebecca had started hiding in a folder named Yoga. Assumptions. They were building a narrative where I'm the absentee father, the paranoid security guy, the man married to his job instead of his family. They were counting on my temper, on some loud move that could be spun as unstable. They were expecting me to fight like a husband. Actions. Don't fight like a husband. I stood, pulled my jacket on, and turned off the office lights. The city looked honest from up here, streets laid out in straight lines pretending life is a grid. I took the elevator to the garage and sat in the truck until the steering wheel stopped feeling like an object I might snap. My phone buzzed with a school email, picture day forms due Friday. Ordinary life has the worst timing. At home, the house greeted me the way expensive houses do. Climate-controlled, silent, staged like a catalog between uses. Connor's cleats were in the entry like punctuation marks. Madison's glitter glue was sealed shut on the kitchen island. A miracle. I opened the fridge and stared at almond milk like it held advice. I rehearsed the conversation I wasn't going to have tonight. Rebecca, we need to talk. About what? About the black hole between us that looks like overtime and business trips and 1,000 small choices we called ambition? About the way you took our life and started editing me out like a bad paragraph? But you can't debate a story that's already been written in a courtroom you aren't invited to. You can only bring a better draft and make sure the judge reads your version first. A strand of hair, hers, was wrapped around a fork in the sink. It felt obscene how intimate that was compared to what I just watched. If you've never had your life slide off the table and shatter, I hope you never do. There's a noise the heart makes when it tries to keep beating underwater. No mic can capture it. I checked the kids. Connor had twisted himself into a human pretzel. One foot hanging off the bed like he was mid-sprint even in sleep. Madison was starfish flat, the stuffed rabbit trapped under one arm like a suspect. I brushed hair off her forehead and she sighed. The kind of sound that forgives things you haven't done yet. I stood in the doorway a long time, letting the mission talk me down from the body. Back in my office at home, I opened a fresh drive and started a new case file. I gave it a boring name, a client alias I'd used years ago. The first folder got a date stamp. The second got subfolders. Finance, MMS, legal, social. In MMS, I dropped the hotel audio. In finance, I dragged the bank statements I'd already flagged. In legal, I started a list of attorneys who would like nothing more than to make a judge look righteous and a senator look small. Purely theoretical at this stage, but I play chess, not checkers. I stopped and breathed. The plan couldn't be about punishment, not at the center. That path burns everything, including the parts you want to keep. This had to be about protection. My kids first. Then the company that puts food on our table. Then my name, the thing men like me guard with a seriousness that confuses people until they need theirs back. My phone lit the desk with a new message from Rebecca. Working late. Don't wait up. There was a period at the end that looked like a door closing. I tapped the screen off and let the dark settle. When it did, I wasn't angry. I was awake. Awake to the roles being assigned, to the script being drafted without me. If they wanted a ghost father and a volatile security nut, they were going to be disappointed. I knew how to collect, how to authenticate, how to build a chain of custody that makes liars blink. I knew how to be patient in rooms where the air was heavy with lies. I knew how to walk toward a trap and let it close around the other man. Somewhere across town, in a room I could see but couldn't enter, my wife was laughing at a joke I wasn't telling. That was fine. I had a notebook full of facts and a lifetime of ways to turn them into a story a judge would be afraid to ignore. I closed the case file and wrote a single sentence at the top of the page. Protect the kids, then the truth. Tomorrow I'd start with her laptop. Tonight, I memorized the sound of my house breathing and promised it we weren't moving. When the sun broke through the blinds the next morning, it sliced across the room like a clean wound. I sat at my desk with coffee gone cold, Rebecca's silver MacBook open in front of me. She'd left it charging on the kitchen counter. Same spot every morning when she went to shower. I had 10 minutes. I'd done this kind of work for a living, digital forensics, breach recovery, data reconstruction. But doing it to your own wife's computer hits different. Every keystroke felt like peeling skin off an old scar. I wasn't hunting a hacker. I was hunting the person who used to fall asleep on my shoulder. Most people think deleting a file makes it disappear. It doesn't. It just tells the computer, you can use this space later. Until something overwrites it, it's still there. Quiet, buried, waiting for someone patient enough to dig. I was patient. By the 8th minute, her desktop files appeared. Invoices, property listings, a folder called Event Photos, innocent names. I tunneled deeper, cache folders, shadow volumes. That's where the ghosts live. The ghosts didn't disappoint. Text logs, screenshots, voice notes. One message stood out. Ethan, you sure he won't check the accounts? Rebecca, he never looks unless it's business. He trusts me. Then a heart emoji. The next set of images took me a second to understand. Rebecca, in our bedroom, sunlight spilling across the same sheets where we'd held both our kids after they were born. Lingerie I'd bought, but for a night I wasn't invited to. I stopped scrolling. My pulse felt like radio static. I closed the file and stared at the wood grain of my desk until it stopped shifting. 12 years of training whispering, you already have what you need. Don't look for pain you can't use. But pain is addictive when it has a name. So I kept reading. There were plans, real plans. Spreadsheets labeling, projected division of assets, custody leverage, corporate defamation timeline. It read like a tactical operation, except I was the target. They wanted to paint me as unstable, obsessed with surveillance, a danger to my own family. Ethan even drafted talking points for her lawyer. Carter's military background makes him controlling and unpredictable. They were going to use my discipline, the same skill that built our comfort, as evidence I was unfit to parent. That's when the fear cooled into focus. If they wanted a narrative, I'd give them data. When Rebecca came downstairs, she was dressed in her showing houses outfit, white blazer, smile sharp enough to cut mirrors. She poured coffee, kissed the air near my cheek, said, "Don't forget parent-teacher night." "I won't," I said and smiled back. My voice was calm because soldiers don't flinch when the sniper is already in the crosshairs. After she left, I backed up every recovered file to an encrypted drive labeled Project Athena. I didn't pick the name for symbolism, it was just the first thing that came to mind. But later, I realized Athena was the goddess of strategy and justice. Fitting. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked a double life. By day, I handled clients, tech firms, law offices, people paranoid enough to pay me for safety. By night, I was my own client. Cameras went into the smoke detectors. Audio recorders smaller than coins hid inside the lining of Rebecca's purse and car. A GPS tracker slipped under the clasp of that diamond bracelet Ethan had bought her. The first night I heard them together, I almost tore the earpiece out. They were in a hotel again, whispering about next steps. Ethan said, once the petition's filed, she'll play the victim. Judges love a heartbroken mother. Rebecca replied, Carter won't fight. He's too proud. We'll be done before he even reacts. Wrong again. But what truly flipped the switch wasn't their betrayal. It was Ethan's next line. And once she gets her half, I'll move everything to the offshore accounts. Monaco first, then Cayman. No trail. It wasn't just adultery. It was organized theft. I spent the next nights chasing digital trails. Ethan's password was predictable. Valentine's Day, his birthday. His arrogance made it easy. Within hours, I had copies of bank statements, Cayman account numbers, transfers totaling over 300,000. My wife's name was on some, mine on others. They'd used our house as collateral for a business loan I never approved. That's when the mission changed from prove innocence to execute counterstrike. But a good operative never fires without knowing every moving piece. I traced one of Ethan's encrypted folders through his cloud backups. Hidden inside a document archive was a single phrase that froze me. Walsh Case 2011 sealed. Rebecca's maiden name. I looked it up through public databases. Nothing. So I dug deeper, old press mentions, archived police reports, forgotten local blogs. Finally, a fragment from 12 years earlier. A fatal drunk driving crash involving a Timothy Walsh. For dead. The case vanished months later, reclassified, after an undisclosed plea deal. That was the moment everything aligned. The power her family carried, senator father, federal judge mother, wasn't just inherited. It was bought. I spent 3 weeks cross-referencing every donation, every legal adjustment. The trail glittered with corruption. By the time I finished, I wasn't staring at my wife's betrayal anymore. I was staring at a dynasty built on buried bodies. I had 2 wars to fight now, one for my children, one for truth. Both demanded precision. I knew how to handle precision. The night before the strike, Rebecca came home late. The smell of Ethan's cologne clung to her dress like static. She found me on the couch, laptop open. "You're still working?" she asked, tone halfway between guilt and habit. "Always," I said, eyes on the screen. She hesitated, maybe reading the chill in my voice. "Carter, the kids miss you when you travel." I closed the laptop. "Then I'll stop traveling." She blinked. "You will?" "Yeah, starting soon." She smiled, relieved, not realizing she'd just been marked as a hostile who'd lost her situational awareness. That night, after she fell asleep, I watched her breathing in the glow of my phone's screen. The same rhythm I'd listened to for 8 years. There was no satisfaction, no victory yet. Just clarity. When I stepped outside, the street was empty, quiet except for the hum of the city. My truck's engine ticked in the cold. I thought of all the men who'd sat here before me, replaying the moment they realized love had become evidence. I drove to the office and printed everything: text logs, bank records, screenshots, hotel footage. I organized it in a binder thick enough to stop a bullet. Then I added the new file, the Walsh case dossier, labeled in bold ink, collateral damage. By dawn, the plan was simple. Let them make the first move. Let them file the petition. Then end the game on my terms. Because justice isn't about screaming in a hotel lobby. It's about showing up in a courtroom where every lie has a timestamp and every betrayal has coordinates. And when that day comes, you don't need to shout. You just press play. 3 weeks later, the call came, calm, polite, and venomous in its courtesy. "Mr. Reynolds," the voice said. "This is Lawrence Sterling, counsel for your wife." My thumb froze on the coffee mug. "Morning," I said evenly. "I believe it's in everyone's best interest if we meet to discuss Rebecca's petition privately, before things escalate." The tone was silk over barbed wire. I agreed. Not because I needed clarification, but because the trap needs to close before you spring it. Sterling's office sat 47 floors above the city, all glass and mahogany, the kind of place that smelled like men who think they own gravity. The receptionist gave me the once-over, probably wondering why a man in a worn leather jacket was walking into a skyscraper full of $2,000 suits. Inside, Sterling was every cliché polished to perfection. Silver hair, navy suit, fake empathy. His desk was a slab of wood big enough to land a drone on. He smiled, the kind of smile lawyers practice in the mirror. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "Please sit. I understand this isn't easy." A Saturday, easy's relative. He slid a thick folder across the desk. "Mrs. Reynolds' proposed terms. We're hoping to resolve this amicably." I opened it. My name was everywhere, attached to numbers, accusations, character assessments. She wanted the house, both cars, full custody of Connor and Madison, 60% of the company, and $8,000 a month in alimony for the next 15 years. I looked up. That's generous. For her. He leaned back, lacing his fingers. Mrs. Reynolds has substantial evidence of your emotional instability and inappropriate surveillance habits. She's concerned about the children's welfare. Her mother, Judge Walsh, has already reviewed preliminary findings and indicated she'd look favorably on Rebecca's petition. There it was, the leverage, the arrogance. The belief that power buys outcomes before truth even clocks in for work. I closed the folder, set it aside. Lawrence, can I ask you something? He smiled. Of course. Do you ever verify your clients' stories before you stake your reputation on them? He blinked. I'm confident in Mrs. Reynolds' honesty. Good, I said, pulling a manila envelope from my briefcase. I placed it gently on his desk. Then you'll love this. Give it to your client. Tell her to read carefully before deciding how hard she wants to fight. Sterling frowned. What exactly is this? Proof, I said, standing. The kind that doesn't need interpretation. He started to speak again, but I was already walking toward the door. 6 hours later, my phone rang. Rebecca. The name on the screen looked unfamiliar, like a stranger was borrowing her number. Her voice shook. Carter, we need to talk. Please. No, I said. Everything I have to say is in that envelope. You don't understand what you're doing, she snapped, voice rising. My family has connections. They can destroy you. I paused, leaning against the window, watching snow fall over the skyline. Your family has secrets, Rebecca. Dark ones. Ask your mother about Maria and Carlos Rodriguez. Ask her how much it cost your father to keep Timothy out of prison. Silence. Long enough that I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. You're bluffing, she whispered. Am I? Then ask her about Isabella and Sophia. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller. What do you want? Justice, I said. You withdraw the divorce petition immediately. Sign over full custody of Connor and Madison. Ethan returns every stolen dollar and disappears. Your mother resigns from the bench before I take this to the FBI and every newsroom in Chicago. You're asking us to destroy our lives. You tried destroying mine first. The difference is, everything I have is true. The next call came an hour later. Ethan. You sick bastard, he hissed. You've been spying on us like some deranged psychopath. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell everyone. Make sure you mention the $340,000 you stole and those offshore accounts. And while you're at it, tell Rebecca about the one-way ticket to Monaco you bought. Silence. Then a single exhale that sounded like defeat. You can't prove any of that, he said finally. I already did, I replied. I have bank statements, transfers, your flight confirmation. Every lie you told, every dollar you touched. The only thing I haven't decided is whether I want to see you in a Chicago courtroom or a French prison. The line went dead. The third call was from Judge Patricia Walsh. Her voice, usually crisp and authoritative, trembled like a loose hinge. What exactly do you want, Mr. Reynolds? I told Rebecca, I said. Justice, accountability, consequences. You're asking me to destroy everything I've built. You destroyed it 12 years ago when you buried evidence for your son. If we don't agree, she asked quietly, then the Rodriguez family finally gets justice. And your entire family pays for what you did. She said nothing. The line clicked dead. That night, I sat in my office, the city humming beyond the glass. The binder of evidence lay open on the desk, lit by a single lamp. In one photo, Ethan and Rebecca smiled for a hotel mirror selfie. His hand on her waist, her reflection just a little too forced. I stared at it until the edges blurred. I didn't feel triumph, just exhaustion. Revenge was never the goal. I wanted safety for the kids, for the truth. But sometimes safety wears the same face as retribution. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark, letting the silence fill the room. The war was over, but battles like this leave echoes. Rebecca and Ethan thought they were playing chess with a man too distracted by work to notice his king under attack. They didn't realize I'd built the board. The call came before dawn. I was making pancakes, Connor's favorite, when the phone buzzed against the counter. Rebecca's voice cracked before I could say hello. Carter, he's gone. Ethan's gone. I didn't speak right away. The kids were at the table, giggling over spilled syrup. I walked to the hallway. What do you mean gone? He cleaned out every shared account. My business funds, savings, everything. He took it all. She was sobbing now, the kind of cry that comes from someone who's realizing the fire they set has burned the wrong house. I checked my laptop, fingers already flying. The banking portal confirmed it. Withdrawals across multiple accounts, swift, surgical. But Ethan had left footprints. They always do. I opened my tracking dashboard. The GPS tag from Rebecca's bracelet? Gone offline. Ethan's car tracker still pinged last night at 9:47 p.m. near O'Hare Airport. By 11:10, the signal vanished. I cross-checked flight logs. Paris. Connecting to Geneva. He was running. Rebecca, I said quietly, pack what's yours. Don't touch anything tied to him. Don't move money. Don't delete messages. Just wait. What are you going to do? Finish this. By noon, I was in a gray-walled office near the federal building, sitting across from Special Agent Jake Murphy. Jake had served with me in Kandahar back when our jobs were less about paperwork and more about not getting shot. He'd gone from military intelligence to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Christ, Carter, he said, flipping through my binder. You always did your homework. I need this one to stick, I said. He whistled. 340 grand through offshore accounts, wire fraud, embezzlement and interstate transfer of stolen assets. That's a career-making case. You sure you want to be on the record? I just want my kids safe and my name clean. Jake nodded. Then we'll make it happen. 6 hours later, Ethan's assets were frozen by court order. 12 hours after that, his name hit the Interpol watch list. By the next morning, French authorities pulled him off a boarding gate at Charles de Gaulle. One-way ticket to Switzerland in his pocket. No return booked. Rebecca called again when she saw the news online. He's been arrested? She stammered. Yes, I said simply. She let out a shaky breath. Carter, please. I know I don't deserve it, but can we fix this? For the kids. I stared at the wall, the sound of her voice a ghost of what it once meant. You can't fix what you set on fire, Rebecca. You can only watch it burn and learn not to light matches again. I made mistakes. You made choices, I said. Now we both live with them. 2 weeks later, I sat again in Lawrence Sterling's office. This time he didn't look so polished. His tie was loosened, his desk littered with half-drunk coffee cups. Rebecca sat beside him, eyes red, makeup smeared, fingers trembling. The woman who once carried herself like a trophy now looked like a headline waiting to fade. On the table sat a new folder, My Terms. I pushed it toward her. It's all there. Custody, assets, non-disclosure agreements. You sign, this ends. She looked at the papers as if they were written in another language. Carter, please, think about Connor and Madison. What this will do to them. I am thinking about them, I said quietly. Every line in that agreement is for them. Her tears came harder now, falling on the page. I loved you once. Maybe, I said, but love doesn't look like what you did. She signed. 1 page, 2, then 3, each signature slower than the last. By the time she reached the final line, her hand was shaking so violently Sterling had to hold the paper steady. When it was done, she set the pen down and whispered, Are you happy now? No, I said. Just done. The fallout hit like a landslide. Judge Patricia Walsh resigned 3 days later, citing medical reasons. The news cycle wasn't kind. Headlines hinted at corruption, buried cases, whispers of judicial misconduct. A week later, the FBI reopened the Rodriguez investigation. Timothy Walsh was arrested in front of his father's mansion, charged with vehicular manslaughter, obstruction, and conspiracy. Senator Robert Walsh held a tearful press conference about family privacy and deep regret. By month's end, he'd announced he wouldn't seek re-election. Years of power and prestige gone, traded for silence and retirement. As for Ethan, he cut a deal. 7 years in exchange for restitution and testimony. I heard he spends his days in a low-security facility teaching inmates about business ethics. Irony is undefeated. Rebecca lost her brokerage license within months. Clients vanished faster than her social circle. She sold the BMW, then the jewelry, then the house her parents helped her buy before the scandal. Last I heard, she was renting a small apartment in Schaumburg, answering phones for a real estate firm that barely made payroll. I didn't celebrate any of it. Revenge stories like to pretend victory feels like fireworks. It doesn't. It feels like silence, the kind where you finally hear yourself breathing again. Now, the house is smaller, quieter, but it's ours. Every morning, Connor runs through the kitchen, backpack half-zipped, yelling about baseball practice. Madison hums while brushing her hair, leaving glitter trails like she's trying to redecorate the air. I make breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs that burn sometimes, pancakes that flop. They don't care. They just laugh. At night, when they're asleep, I sit on the back porch with a cup of coffee and listen to the city hum. The same city that almost swallowed me. The same skyline that watched me crawl back out. Sometimes people ask if I regret it, if I could have forgiven Rebecca instead of dismantling her world. I always give the same answer. You can't rebuild on rot. The truth doesn't need forgiveness. It needs sunlight. 6 months later, my company's stronger than ever. Word got around Chicago's business circuit about how I handled a personal breach. Clients like that sort of reputation. We've doubled staff, expanded contracts, and I've even learned to leave the office by 6. Because now I know what matters. The other night, Madison painted a picture of our family. Just 3 stick figures this time. No fourth one lurking in the corner. She drew the house, the trees, and a sun with too many rays. I asked her why so many. So it never goes dark again, she said. Kids always know how to end a story better than adults do. Sometimes I dream about Rebecca. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but the early days. Her laugh at that charity dinner. The way she leaned in when she spoke. The version of her that existed before ambition turned into poison. Then I wake up, and the dream fades into static. I step into the kids' room, kiss their foreheads, and remind myself that peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of purpose. And justice? Justice isn't loud. It doesn't kick doors or wave flags. It just waits, patient, until the truth finds a microphone. Mine did. It's strange what life feels like when the war is finally over. Not triumphant, not cinematic, just quiet. 6 months after the papers were signed, the echoes faded. The lawyers stopped calling. Reporters lost interest. The world moved on, and for the first time in years, I wasn't being hunted by enemies, guilt, or ghosts. But some nights, I still woke up at 3:17 a.m., the exact time Connor had been born. Habit, maybe, or a reminder of when my world had first been worth protecting. I'd walk down the hall, open the door to the twins' room. The nightlight painted them gold, their breathing soft and steady. I'd stand there until the quiet settled into me, until I could believe this peace wasn't borrowed. Reynolds Security Solutions was thriving again. Word had spread about the Carter incident. Clients liked the story, a man who exposed betrayal with precision instead of rage. They didn't know the details, just the myth. The myth sold better anyway. 28 employees now. 2 new offices. Revenue north of $4 million. But the success didn't own me anymore. I didn't stay past midnight. I didn't bring work home. I started coaching Connor's little league team, the Lincoln Park Lions. Madison joined an art club and painted something new every week, each brighter than the last. That's what redemption looks like, I guess, the ordinary. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the kids run through the sprinklers, Madison asked, "Daddy, why don't we see Mom anymore?" I took a breath. Because sometimes, when people make really bad choices, they need time to fix themselves. Did she make bad choices? I nodded slowly. Yeah. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Connor frowned. Do you still love her? I looked out at the backyard. The grass wet, the air humming with summer. I'll always care about who she was. But I can't love who she became. They were quiet for a while. Then Connor said, "You didn't yell when she hurt you." "No," I said. "Yelling's easy. Building something better is harder." He nodded, serious beyond his age, and turned back to chase his sister through the sprinklers. Rebecca called once after that, 8 months post-divorce. Unknown number, voice tentative. "I just wanted to hear the kids' voices," she said. "They're at school," I told her. A pause. "Carter, I'm sorry. For everything." "I know." Another pause. "Do you ever think we could have fixed it?" I thought about our wedding day, her auburn hair in sunlight, how I'd believed in forever like it was a contract written in ink that wouldn't fade. "No," I said softly, "because forever only works when both people tell the truth." She didn't argue, just whispered, "Take care of them," and hung up. That was the last time we spoke. A year later, I got a letter not from Rebecca, but from her attorney. She'd moved to a different state, legally changed her last name. Attached was a single line handwritten in blue ink. "You were right. About justice. It hurts, but it's honest." No return address. I read it once, then slid it into the back of my safe. Not out of nostalgia, but as evidence that maybe, even in the ruins, some people still find their way to truth. It was early spring when the story came full circle. A reporter called asking if I'd comment on the final sentencing in the Walsh case. Timothy pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter and obstruction. 10 years, no parole. Judge Walsh was officially disbarred. The senator faded from headlines entirely. "Do you have a statement, Mr. Reynolds?" the reporter asked. I thought for a moment. "Tell them justice took 12 years, I said. But it remembered the way home. Sometimes, after the kids are asleep, I still hear echoes of that hotel audio. The laughter, the betrayal, the moment the old version of me died. But now it doesn't sting. It's just history. The truth is, revenge was never the victory. Survival was. Justice isn't fire. It's light. It doesn't burn to destroy, it burns to reveal. I learned that the hard way. Tonight, the backyard smells like rain and cut grass. Madison's art project, our family painted in watercolor, dries on the porch rail. The sun is melting into the sky, painting the world the same shade of gold as the bracelet that once symbolized everything I lost. Except now that gold feels like peace. Connor runs up, mud on his knees, shouting, "Dad, we won 6-2. I hit a double." I laughed, wrestling his hands. "That's my door." Madison waved from the screen. "Daddy, you promised me the night." "I remember," I said, and I mean it. Inside, the popcorn was already in the microwave. I shut down my laptop, no security feed, no tracking stones, no secret codes. Just the glow of a simple life and the one hard truth I told. As the credits roll later that night, both kids fall asleep against my shoulder. The living room is quiet except for their breathing and the soft flicker of the TV. And for the first time in years, I don't feel like a man rebuilding from ruin. I feel like a man who finally made it home. Because sometimes, justice isn't a courtroom victory. It's two sleeping children who know their father never stopped fighting for them.